Welcome to another edition of the Nightly News, Ted. It's your home state. Sergeant Daniel Perry just got convicted of first-degree murder. And let's just give a little backdrop for our listeners and then, get your take. He was an Army sergeant. He was convicted of first-degree murder during the Black Lives Matter rallies down there, the protests. Many innocents were beaten, severely beaten, and that's all on tape. And Sergeant Perry was a Uber driver. There's video and pictures of an armed protester pointing a gun at Sergeant Perry in his vehicle, and he shot him. Perry shot the protester. Now, there's information out there that the lead detective provided this Soros-funded, very liberal prosecutor all kinds of exculpatory evidence, which for those listening means evidence that proves the innocence of the charged. Yet they buried that, took it to a liberal jury, and Perry was found guilty of first-degree murder. So my two questions to you today, really my starting two questions is, what does self-defense mean if that doesn't mean self-defense? And what does Governor Abbott need to do going forward? What's your take?
You gave the overview of that, Keith, because I've been on top of this. I've been in touch with the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, here because we know this is an absolute abomination of the justice system. There is no justice if you can't perform the most instinctual, pure responsibility. It's a responsibility to defend your precious gift of life from God. And Sergeant Dan Perry did exactly that, and everybody knows he did that. And that this happens in the state of Texas is heartbreaking, tragic, and absolutely obscene. And that Governor Perry, who does a good job sometimes, then the failure to secure our border is another anti-Texas, anti-Remember the Alamo, anti-American, anti-freedom insanity. But I support Governor Perry. Certainly I wish Rick Perry was the governor.
Freudian slip there, Ted.
Yeah, that's a gladiator slip.
Yep.
The point is that I'm going to visit Sergeant Daniel Perry. I'm going to go down to the jails that this guy was unjustly put in because, like Nancy Pelosi says, anybody on the left, the Democrats absolutely believe, and our court system is infested with the obscenity that you are guilty till proven innocent. This guy used a legally carried gun, which all guns are legally carried because we have the right to keep and bear arms. Oh my God, we have to explain that 1 and 1 equals 2 in 2023. What a cluster crank. So the point being is that Ken Paxton knows that this was not justice. Governor Abbott knows this was not justice. Everybody with a heart and soul and a conscience knows that Perry is in prison right now because he performed the most perfect instinctual responsibility of self-defense against a violent, vicious attacker that pointed a rifle at him. And of course, all the stories say the rioter, the Black Lives Matter and that wasn't a protest, that was a riot. It was an absolute terrorism perpetrated by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, which is what all of their actions are, terrorism. So Sergeant Perry lifted his firearm when he saw the muzzle of the attacker's rifle and neutralized the threat. This is as pure as breathing. This is as pure as putting out a fire in someone's house. This is so embarrassing to Texans, and Texans are rallying, just like we did in New York City when that bodega operator on film protected his life from a paroled savage. My friends at the Nightly News, you've got to tell everybody in your life that we are victims of engineered recidivism. All these vicious criminals are caught and released to perpetrate evil and violence upon innocent victims in America. This is so out of control. If you're just nodding your head, that's not going to do anything. You've got to make sure you know your district attorney, your prosecuting attorney. You have to know your judges and vote the ones in that abide by the Constitution, that is epitomized by the purity of self-defense. I had Kyle Rittenhouse here at the Spirit Wild Ranch. Here is a perfect example. If you can be proven to perform self-defense in Kenosha, Wisconsin, but not in Texas, Shame on us in Texas for allowing justice to dwindle into this obscenity. So Governor Abbott has on record that when there's a specific board in Texas called the Pardon Review Board. Governor Abbott is on record that he's pushing the Pardon Review Board to review this obscene anti-justice situation and to release Sergeant Dan Perry, which we're going to continue to hold prayers for and raise money for his exoneration. This man is guilty of no crime whatsoever except the perfection of defending his life from a vicious armed attacker. This is Planet of the Apes Cuckoo's Nest personified, and we the people better rally to this great cause.
You know what, Ted? That's perfect. And, you know, when you meet Sergeant Dan Kelly, I know you've talked to him previously, let's get him on the show. And I'm hoping that's after Governor Abbott does the right thing, get your fellow Texan pardoned, and let's get his side of the story, just like you did so eloquently with Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, tomorrow...
Yeah, I apologize for saying Dan Perry. It's Dan Kelly, right?
Yeah, Dan Kelly.
Sergeant Dan Kelly, right.
Yeah. So tomorrow night, Ted, I want to talk about something else. I mean, it seems like every single night we're dealing with the left, progressive, woke culture attacking the right. It happened again in San Francisco. A young woman, Riley Gaines, an NCAA swim champion, and she has gone on record with the controversial position that women are women and men are men. I know it's controversial. We'll get into it tomorrow night, but I want to get your take on the vicious attack that happened on that young lady in San Francisco just last week. We'll deal with that tomorrow night right here on the Nightly Nooch.
God bless truth, logic, and common sense, everybody.